abuse of power and corruption among ANC members. In this regard, it is critical for us to discuss the impact on the organization of the ANC being in government and our cadres having access to state power and resources. The access to state power and resources has led to perceptions and allegations that the ANC is a corrupt organization, given allegations of wrongdoing in certain cases with regards to state tenders. Failure to respond adequately and timeously to allegations and the length of time that it takes for investigations to be concluded cause immense damage to the image of government and the ANC. There is also talk in the country currently about the capture of the state or government in the main by business interests. We support the establishment of a judicial commission of inquiry to look into the matter. At a political level, this debate requires a thoroughgoing analysis of the South African political economy so that we can understand what is meant by the state capture. We need to know which business interests have sought to influence the ANC and its government over the years, with what impact and what must be done to end the said capture. Such discussion is important because the ANC, as the leader of the society, must be at the forefront of fighting corruption, both in the public and private sector. We have introduced important pieces of legislation and have created very powerful institutions, especially to deal with corruption. At the last conference in Mangaung in 2012, we established the Integrity Committee as an internal mechanism. This policy conference will have an occasion to review the efficacy of this measure based on the experience of the past 5 years or so. Comrades, we also need to assess if our problems lie with the manner in which ANC leadership is selected. The most significant contribution that the ANC has given to our country over many years is tried and tested leaders who inspire confidence and trust among the masses of our people. The ANC produced Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Helen Joseph, Yusuf Dadu, Lillian Ngoyi, and many others. The leadership election processes must be democratic and free from manipulation and external influences. In this way, we can protect the movement from abuse. We must therefore ensure that leaders are selected in line with the requirements outlined in our blueprint through the eye of the needle. Political education also remains paramount for both new and existing members. Without schooling members in the traditions of the ANC, we cannot criticize them when they make mistakes. This is all important as we head towards our elective conference in December. Comrades, the renewal of the organization also relates to the functioning of our leagues and the other structures, and also strengthening the tripartite alliance. The alliance was formed out of struggle and out of a shared vision as articulated in the Freedom Charter. It is based on the understanding that each alliance component enjoys political independence from the other. Our discussions about the renewal of the ANC must reflect on the relationship with the alliance partners and how this can be strengthened so that it continues its role of advancing the goals of the National Democratic Revolution. The unity of the alliance is sacrosanct and must be protected at all times. It must not be undermined by sectarian agendas and personal hatreds. Comrades and compatriots, organizational renewal discussions must also include the role of women in the ANC and society. And what else the ANC must do to advance the vision of a non-sexist society and gender equality. A lot of progress has already been made in advancing the status of women, and the ANC Women's League has played a key role in this regard. We need to reflect on what else needs to be done to promote gender equality. Comrades, there is clearly a need for a strong Veterans League and Umkhonto Wesizwe Military Veterans Association in order to provide a platform for more veterans and stalwarts to participate in the work and life of the organization. Comrades, the South African population is becoming increasingly youthful. These young people have very little to no real experience of the brutality of apartheid. The ANC needs to adapt and become responsive to the needs of our youth today. It must talk to their interests, from access to education, jobs, the need to reduce data costs, entrepreneurship, to general social issues of concern to them. One of the key issues affecting our youth is funding for higher education and jobs. The Freedom Charter emphasizes that, and I quote, "Education shall be free, compulsory, universal, and equal for all children. Higher education and technical training shall be opened to all by means of state allowances and scholarships awarded on the basis of merit." Close quote. The Constitution takes forward this promise, declaring that, and I quote, "Everyone has the right to a basic education, including adult basic education, and to further education, which the state, through reasonable measures, must make progressively available and accessible." Close quote. In 2007, the ANC Policy Conference resolved that, and I quote, "Free higher education for the poor up to undergraduate level must be progressively implemented," and this was reiterated at the Mangaung conference or policy conference. The funds allocated to the National Students Financial Aid Scheme for loans and bursaries to students at public universities and technical and vocational education and training colleges have increased substantially from more than 2 billion rand in 2009 to more than 12 billion rand in 2017. This policy conference will provide for robust discussion of the possibilities for providing equality affordable higher education to as many South Africans as possible and free education for the poor. This policy conference must, at an opportune time, as we eagerly await the report of the Presidential Commission into the feasibility of fee-free higher education and training. The deadline for the Commission to complete its work is actually today. 30 June 2017, and we await the report. Of course, we have heard from our friends who get things first than us. They've already made an indication that the report is complete. Of course, we rely on them, not so. We rely. Agreed? Comrades and friends, I would now like to reflect briefly on some of the policy imperatives before conference this week. We recall the instructive words of our President, O.R. Tambo, whose centenary we will be celebrating in October this year. He said, "Comrades, you might think it is very difficult to wage a liberation struggle. Wait until you are in power. I might be dead by then. At that stage, you will realize that it is actually more difficult to keep the power than to wage a liberation war." People will be expecting a lot of services from you. You will have to satisfy the various demands of the masses of our people. Unquote. Let me repeat it. I think it is absolutely important because one day, another leader, Moses Mabhida, said in a lighter debate, OR is another leader. He's one of the finest leaders that the ANC has produced. He sees things 3 years ahead of all of us. Now, he was seeing things many years before our liberation. Let me quote him again. "Comrades, you might think it is very difficult to wage a liberation struggle. Wait until you are in power. I might be dead by then. At that stage, you will realize that it is actually more difficult to keep the power than to wage a liberation war. People will be expecting a lot of services from you. You will have to satisfy the various demands of the masses of our people." Close quote. What wise words came from our leader. I would like to say all of you will agree with this. During the struggle, you never had to discuss the problems within the ANC as you do, because you were fighting, we're still fighting. Today you have to have 2 days before the conference to discuss the difficulties. And indeed, the protest by people out there is exactly what the OR said, demanding things from all directions. He's reminding us as the ANC, as a contribution to this conference, remember, it will be more difficult then. So the difficulties we are faced with today were known by those who led us, that they will come, because freedom, as it is so wonderful, comes with its own challenges. Successes at times bring its own challenges. At times, as you become victorious, the problems begin bigger. As a fighting person in this country, you see a bridge, a beautiful bridge, you want to destroy it. And it is easy. You just put an explosive, it is down. And you feel, you see an oil refinery, you burn it. But once you are in government, you have to construct more of the bridges, more of the oil refineries. That is the difference that you have. What this says, the more the difficulties, the organization must be more united. Because if we are not united when we are faced with new difficulties, then we are in problem. Because the difficulty to be more difficult to resolve. This is a lesson to this conference from our beloved leader, Ubaba Utambo. Indeed, OR was so right. We have a duty to sharpen our policies and ensure their effective implementation in order to meet the needs of our people and push back poverty, inequality, and unemployment. While all our programs are important, the economy remains our apex priority. Nithini tasiphelele kukhona ongekho. Over the last 7 years, the ANC placed the creation of decent jobs through inclusive growth as a key strategic outcome. We adopted the National Development Plan as a broad framework to achieve this and the other strategic outcomes. The National Development Plan and the 9-point plan to reignite growth remain relevant towards achieving radical economic transformation. However, some extraordinary measures are necessary to move the NDP forward faster. At the last national conference in Mangaung, we resolved to embark on the second, more radical phase of transition to a national democratic society. We said that this phase would be characterized by more radical policies and decisive action in order to achieve socio-economic and continue democratic transformation. Radical socio-economic transformation, as defined by the ANC NEC in January this year, refers to a fundamental change in the structure, system, institutions, and patterns of ownership and control of the economy in favor of all South Africans, especially the poor, the majority of whom are African and female. Its components include the creation of jobs, accelerating shared and inclusive growth, transforming the structure of production and productive of the means of production, and enabling the talents and productive potential of our people to flourish. The instruments that government must use to advance radical socio-economic transformation have also been identified. These are the Constitution, legislation, and regulations, licensing, broad-based black economic empowerment, and transformation charter, the national budget, and procurement, state-owned companies, and development finance institutions, as well as government programs. Conference will discuss a number of interventions needed to advance radical socio-economic transformation. Some of the measures must include accelerated land redistribution, land reform, and huge support for agriculture and agro-processing on a large scale. Land, in particular, remains one of the most contentious and emotive issues in our society. The pace of land restoration and redistribution remains a sore point for millions of our people who were shunted to a small portion, often of the lowest quality of land, and even denied the right to purchase land in areas that were reserved for a minority of citizens. We believe it is possible to find radical solutions to land hunger, working within the ambit of the law and the Constitution. We also need to discuss ways of sustaining commercial agriculture and to increase agricultural contribution to the gross domestic product. We need to pursue industrialization strategies instead of depending on export of natural resources or raw materials with declining commodity prices. We must increase investment into infrastructure projects, prioritize townships and rural areas, and provide generous subsidies to black industrialists and entrepreneurs to build new factories and businesses. We also need to consider the transformation and deracialization of the highly concentrated financial sector in the interest of vast majority of the country. The licensing of Post Bank is also important, and to give it capacity so that it can distribute social grants. Ake ngiphindele kancane le paragraph encane. The licensing of Post Bank is also important, and to give it capacity so that it can distribute social grants. Government must drive local procurement and supplier development and ensure that black-owned companies benefit from government procurement. The mining license regime and charter must be utilized to facilitate BBEE local procurement, the development of black industrialists and SMMEs. These are all programs that we must use to drive economic transformation. The state-owned enterprises are a strategic instrument for the developmental state. But as experience indicates, we have to get them to the right level of performance and governance for them to achieve their mission. The improvement of governance at these SOEs is of utmost importance. Challenges in SOEs such as the SABC, SAA, and ESCOM have been a subject of public debates, and finding solutions is critical for the ANC. Building partnerships with business is also important for the country to achieve much needed growth. Government will need to be proactive or proactively engage all sectors of business to encourage their participation in industrial expansion, economic growth, and job creation. Other key programs forming part of the Radical Socio-Economic Transformation Program include National Health Insurance and the Comprehensive Social Security. The Transformation Program also talks to the eradication of social ills, including violence against women and children. The ANC government has made the killings of women a priority crime, and the police have been directed to treat such cases with seriousness and urgency. Also key is the need to eradicate the abuse of drugs and substance abuse, which are tearing communities apart, from the Cape Flats to Umlazi, Soshanguve, or El Dorado Park. We reiterate the call for the ANC branches to establish streets and village committees to support the police in dealing with this problem. What comrades will be really wished for is that in this policy conference, which is longer than any other we have had, I don't think we'll ever have another one as long as this one, that because we are faced with challenges, let us not discuss generalities. Let us discuss specific issues and take decisions. So that after this conference, as we move to the national elective conference in December, we are more than ready to take the decisions there that will see us in 2018 really quickly changing the face of our country for the better. In other words, my feeling is that you should help other delegates. Man babon se bayaqhabalaga nje manje bayaqhabalaga, they are not discussing solutions. Nimnqando comrade. Nimnqando, sorry comrade. Asinaso isikhathi la. Siyakuzwa ukuthi uyiphethe kodwa hayi sifuna isolution with problem. This is those who will be chairing the commissions, etc. Because it is important to spend more time working on solutions. Because we have been diagnosing the problems all the time. We must now find solutions and work on the instruments to deal with solutions to implement. One of the things I think you should do is to have, seriously, a monitoring entity. I don't know, there are too many names now we use in these things. I'm calling it entity, that will follow the decisions that would be taken in December. How they are being implemented. You want a decision in December because that entity needs to be capacitated, etc., etc. We might even reduce other structures in favor of this one to ensure that we are able to implement our decisions. The ANC government has also begun to take a visible and aggressive stance against crime generally in our communities and to ensure that criminal gangs are put behind bars where they belong. Our communities should not be made to coexist with criminals. All these programs and the others require the existence of a capable state. The public service must be professionalized, and government will need to teach public servants the philosophy and ethics of the development state and also of caring for citizens and being responsive to their needs. Government must also develop capacity to communicate better with citizens. The capacity to monitor and evaluate government programs and planning ahead is also critical. Comrades, the delegates here come from the branches of the ANC. You know best the conditions in which the people live. You know better than anyone else if the most pressing need is for a clinic or a school. That is why branches determine the policy of the ANC. Amandla asemasebeni, but amandla asemasebeni but aniwasebenzisi. Ninele nibakhetha abantu kube yibona babuya bazonikeza ama instructions. It's a funny thing. This conference is your conference in the main. If you take decisions here as recommendations, it is in actual fact the branches that have taken the decisions. You take all the decisions. If you are to elect the leader of the organization, the president, there's no other forum that can elect a president except the conference of the branches. If you want to elect a mayor, a councillor, everyone, it is the representative from the branches. But once you elect those people, you then sawubona councillor, how sawubona president. You know, we have forgotten that you actually put these people here. They depend on you. You now think that you depend on them. Amandla asemasebeni, how do you translate that? Even when you elect a president, some people who have no right come to tell you this president must go. They don't consult you. They are too lunch. Anginazi ukuthi nadalwa kanjani. People take your right, you just keep quiet. Because you are the only ones who can hire and fire. Not so. Senilalele thina ngoba sesihamba kancane, sijikisa amakhanda kancane, sesithatha ikhundla zenu, my babo. What we are here for is ultimately to find a common understanding on how best to address those needs in the shortest and the most satisfactory manner. That's an emphasis that this conference, perhaps more than any other policy conference, precisely because of the situation we find ourselves today, you need to spend more time finding solutions to problems, whether they are political or governmental or social. Comrades and friends, conference will also need to look at the balance of forces and the resistance to socio-economic transformation that will continue to hinder the implementation of our policies and programs. Such resistance comes in different forms. The ANC will continue to experience resistance to its progressive policies relating to employment equity, broad-based black economic empowerment, labor market regulation, and land reform. The use of the courts to oppose our policies and programs will also continue and is something we need to reflect on at this conference. I think the bigger question is, why is in democracy that we have got to spend money, go to court for everything? Is that what we designed as our democracy? Is that the democracy we want? If you disagree with an opposition, that does not make the simple understanding of democracy work, that the majority prevail. Then you go to where there is no majority in court to finalize the debate. Because that's what is happening today in South Africa. You argue in parliament, and then the opposition is defeated. They say, okay, we are going to parliament, we are going to court. In other words, the debate in parliament these days ends up in courts. Is that the democracy we thought we were doing? I think these are matters we need to discuss very seriously as the African National Congress. Because this, in other words, is a counter to democracy. You can't do anything. People will vote for you in the majority because of the programs you present. But once your programs are there, you try to implement them. Some people take you to court. It is unconstitutional. Don't do it. So that, in a sense, undermines the simple logic of majority prevails or majority rule. I think that matter is serious for you to discuss. Is this that we wanted to? There are many things that we wanted to do, we can't do because there's now the decision of the court. The courts, I think recently, I heard courts beginning to say, please don't bring your job here. Finish it in parliament. At the same time, it should concern us that the ANC-led government should have to be directed by the court to implement its own policies better. Very funny, but it has happened. That also talks to us how we implement. But I can tell you, the reason that happened is because of the point I've just made, wherein the opposition can argue with us because our politics are good. You can't falter them. And therefore, that's why they remain with slogans and then courts. They collect more money to fight the democratic issues in court. I've never seen such a democracy. That's why I say, let us discuss it and say, is this what we can actually quickly change the quality of lives of our people by being in court all the time? We should improve our capacity to implement our programs without the courts having to direct us to do. In other words, we should also look at ourselves. Let us do things right, precisely because we now know at a drop of a hat we are in court. So let us limit the elements that will make us go to court. In Parliament, we have politics of spectacles and grandstanding, drama, and manipulation in our Parliament. Grandstanding, etc. But we all say we are here, we sent by the people. You know, everybody, even those who just send themselves, they can say they were sent by the people. So easy to say it. We have to ask ourselves whether we have honed the skills to manage this and the growing attempts to draw a wedge between the executive and the parliamentary caucus of the governing party. Another form of resistance takes the form of traditional lobbying, where vested economic interests seek to derail transformational policies through different forms of persuasion. We should also be alive to the dynamics globally and the changing balance of forces. All our positions in the global village must first and foremost serve the national interests. By definition, the National Democratic Revolution is an internationalist project. Our revolution is an integral part of the anti-colonial and anti-imperialist movement for a new world order. Africa is part of us, as we are part of Africa, first and foremost. Our struggle is inextricably linked with the struggle against neocolonialism and imperialism on our continent. Our Pan-African and internationalist position informs our support for the struggles of the people of Western Sahara and Palestine for self-determination. It informs our solidarity with the people of Cuba and against the economic embargo on this revolutionary nation by the US, and our demands for institutional reform of the United Nations. We remain steadfast in our demand for the representation of Africa among the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Comrades will recall the ANC decision for the country to withdraw from the International Criminal Court and subsequent government action to effect this decision. The government has begun to rectify the procedural challenges that have arisen. We have also taken note of the latest reluctance of their member states to withdraw in bloc. The current government position is that the decision to withdraw was a principal matter, and the principle still stands. As already indicated, the ANC is part of the global anti-imperialist movement. We are historically connected with the countries of the South, and therefore South-South cooperation such as BRICS is primary for our movement. At the same time, we are historically connected with the countries of the North, with whom we have strong economic ties. Comrades, we also need to reflect on other developments in the global environment, such as the reinsurgence of neoconservatism. This manifests itself in the victory of center-right parties in elections in some of the advanced societies. Other manifestations include the unilateralism on trade and diplomatic issues, and a retreat to protectionist trade policies. We must reflect on all these positions in the next few days as we discuss our international relations policy. Comrades, as we begin this very important dialogue on organizational renewal, let us be reminded of the words of Isitwalande Ndwe, Walter Sisulu, who said, and I quote, "It is a law of life that problems arise when conditions are there for their solution," unquote. The ANC is 105 years old because it has always been able to rise to the occasion to deal decisively with problems that threatened its very existence. When we say the ANC can self-correct, we mean that when the challenges are daunting, its cadres are able to go back to what brought them together in the first place. Let us find what brought us together and find solutions to the challenges facing the movement and our people. Let us not be defeated in our discussions. Solutions can be found and must be found to the challenges facing our movement. The ANC must and will emerge from this policy conference stronger. Concluding his political report to the 1991 National Conference, President Oliver Tambo made the following remarks. Let me, before make the final words from OR, say something, because these branches have not met for a long time. You know that the reason why we have 7 days, it is because some comrades who call themselves stalwarts veterans went around the country organizing other comrades because they had some views, and organized those comrades and later reported to headquarters that they've organized comrades at about 101. And these comrades have concerns that they want to discuss. But they did not say we want to discuss this with the leadership of the ANC. They said they want a consultative conference. They took a decision on their own, outside the structures of the ANC, and presented that. At first we thought it was very funny that so many comrades could sign a petition in the manner in which they did. And they said they have actually went around canvassing the comrade who wrote the letter. He has views and is not coming with the views to headquarters to say, look, these are the problems I see. Takes the views and organize other comrades. We thought we should check with those comrades. We actually wrote individual letters to them. Are these your problems? I think only 1 or 2 or 3 others were disassociating themselves from that they don't even know how their names are there. In fact, one of them who was there, who's sick, who's at the hospital now, sent me a message yesterday. He wants me to come to the hospital so that he can clarify that he's not party to that. We had a discussion in an attempt to meet their request, much as this was really done funny by people who profess to be knowing the ANC. But we said, fine, maybe comrades have got reasons. We had a discussion with them, and we ended up with a compromise decision that in the days that we normally have of the policy conference, we'll add 2 days, so that the first 2 days will then come with them. They will participate and discuss their concerns and the concerns of all of us. And later, of course, they were joined by some comrades as well, who are former MK, who are calling themselves the council. And we had agreed that this will happen, but they decided, no, this is not what they want. They want their own. It's a very fun. It's like now a real organization operating. I'm sure they must be having an office or something. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Well, they're very organized. They organize the media and, in fact, communicate with us in the majority of cases through the media. Now, I'm not sure whether it is true because I've been traveling a lot. I was told that they said to the SGO, they don't think the quality of the discussion here will be at the level. They need serious discussion. So these are the people who claim they have the values and the understanding of the ANC, but the branches that are the organization, they think, no, just riff-raff. They want the discussion at a very high level. And that's the reason why they can tell you, your president is wrong, we want him out. They don't come to you to say, you elected this fellow, and this fellow is messing up. We ask you to do what you did to remove him. They think they've got power, everything. In fact, one of them wrote me, not one of them, one of the comrades who thought that we are not meeting these comrades, wrote me a letter. And in the letter, it was saying, in fact, these comrades are more important than us elected. We're just elected to do administration. They are the real leaders. I think it was in the letter that was written. I think you should know this because they have decided to have their own. I don't know what it means, but I will be really unfair if I don't say what I say to you, because many of us have controlled ourselves not to respond to these comrades, because we know them. Some of them are not as strong as they project themselves. We know them. But because we are keeping to the discipline of the organization, we are not engaging them in public, and we will never engage them. I'm just talking here because these are the branches to know that this is what had happened. In fact, quite a number of them, when they talk to the media, they say there is no leadership in this country. And they are very convinced. They are the leaders. People who are leading at the moment, they are not, they're just administrators. But that's fine. Let me close with OR. I'm now closing. Absolutely. OR was one of the finest leaders. Cheers. Things that he said go a long way. And I quote OR, "We did not tear ourselves apart because of lack of progress at times. We were always ready to accept our mistakes and to correct them. Above all, we succeeded to foster and defend the unity of the ANC and the unity of our people in general. Even in bleak moments, we were never in doubt regarding the winning of freedom. We have never been in doubt that the people's cause shall triumph." Unquote. Yes, we honor our forebears and our martyrs today and in their memory. Let us make this 5th National Policy Conference a success. Amandla awethu matla ya rona Oliver Tambo hawubathe ngoxolo Oliver Tambo hawulale ngoxolo Okudala uzabalaza Okudala uzabalaza Uzabalaza Wemfoka Tambo hawulale ngoxolo Wemfoka Tambo hawulale ngoxolo wena Okudala uzabalaza Okudala uzabalaza Uzabalaza uMandela uthi ayihloma uMandela utahlomisasela osiyaya owesizwe lusaka uMandela utahloma uMandela utahlomisasela osiyaya owesizwe lusaka uMandela utahloma uMandela utahlomisasela osiyaya owesizwe lusaka uMadiba utahloma uMadiba utahlomisasela osiyaya owesizwe lusaka amandla awethu ohinde lendlela esihambayo ohinde lendlela esihamba washuMandela ubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom washuMandela ubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom ohinde lendlela esihambayo ohinde lendlela esihamba ohinde lendlela esihambayo ohinde lendlela esihamba washuMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom washuMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom hinde lendlela esihambayo hinde lendlela esihamba ihinde lendlela esihambayo ihinde lendlela esihamba washuMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom washuMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom day. Thank you.